They say the wails echoed for miles. Summer 1462. You're an Ottoman soldier in the mightiest army in existence. You have conquered Constantinople and toppled empires. Now, you are marching into a small principality called Wallachia to crush a rebellious prince. It should take days or perhaps only weeks. Then you catch a scent, death, decay, and something indefinable. Your column begins to slow. The scouts have halted. As you crest the hill near the capital, you behold a horrific sight. It's a forest, but not as you'd expect. Instead, it's a mass of human beings, 20,000 of them, your compatriots, your kin. They are affixed on wooden stakes, arranged in geometric patterns stretching as far as the eye can see. Some have been dead for weeks, bloated and blackened. Others still breathe, still scream in agony. Your Sultan, the conqueror of the Byzantine Empire, surveys this dreadful scene and orders an immediate retreat. What kind of mind devises such a barbaric spectacle? Herein lies the terrifying truth. This isn't madness. It's a calculated strategy, chillingly effective. The narrative you think you know about Vlad the Impaler is misleading, not because it's incorrect, but because the truth is even more horrifying. This is the complete tale of how one man weaponized human suffering with such efficacy that it altered the destiny of empires. By the end, you'll grasp that the true horror lay not in what he inflicted upon bodies, but what he did to minds. Consider this. What ruptures a human psyche to the extent that they become capable of such horrors? The year is 1442. Vlad is only 11 years old. The terms are straightforward. Vlad II retains his throne in Wallachia, while he surrenders his two youngest sons as hostages, a form of collateral to ensure his loyalty. Thus, young Vlad and his brother Radu are uprooted from their home and thrust into the heart of the Ottoman Empire not as prisoners in dank cells, but as honored guests in the palaces of Edirne and later Amasya. They're showered with fine attire, afforded education and military training. On the surface, it might appear to be privilege. However, historians overlook a critical aspect. This was psychological warfare. Vlad spent his formative years, from ages 11 to 17, observing his captors perfect the art of empire building. He witnessed how the Ottomans wielded fear as a governance tool. He experienced public executions designed not solely to punish but to instill terror in entire populations, ensuring submission. Vlad learned a grim truth. Terror, when wielded with precision, could eclipse any conventional army. He also internalized something more distressing. He was utterly powerless. While his brother Radu adjusted, even cultivating a bond with the Sultan's son, Mehmed, Vlad stubbornly refused to yield. Ottoman court records indicate he was frequently punished for his defiance. Some accounts suggest he faced beatings and possible torture. The exact nature of his suffering is obscured by time. But one thing is clear, something essential shattered within him during those years, or more accurately, something crystallized. He developed what modern psychologists term a persecution complex, coupled with an intense desire for control. He channeled this pain. Each punishment endured was studied, each torture he witnessed committed to memory. He was constructing a mental arsenal, piece by piece. In 1448, after 6 years of captivity, Vlad finally returned to Wallachia at the age of 17. 2 months later, his father was assassinated by rival boyars, the nobility who played both sides against the Ottomans and Hungarians, while his older brother, Mircea, was buried alive. Vlad stood alone, encircled by enemies, with no one to support him. This is where the narrative takes an intriguing turn. He didn't merely yearn for revenge. He aspired to reshape the world in the reflection of his trauma. He would take the lessons learned from the Ottomans about fear and transform them into something unprecedented. But first he had to bide his time. For another 6 years, Vlad lived in exile, plotting, scheming, and studying battle tactics and political maneuvering. In 1456, with Hungarian support, he finally seized the Wallachian throne. The monster was about to be unleashed. If you recaptivated by tales of psychological breaking points that crafted history's most infamous figures, hit subscribe. We only just beginning to explore how this broken boy morphed into something far worse than his captors could ever have anticipated. Vlad's coronation feast in 1456 should have signified jubilation. Instead, it became the blueprint for chaos. He invited the noble families, the very ones who had orchestrated his father's murder and buried his brother alive. He didn't execute them on the spot, at least not yet. Instead, he divided them into two factions based on their age and health. The older boys, the architects of his family's undoing, were impaled right outside the palace walls. Not swiftly. The stakes were inserted with utmost care, avoiding vital organs to ensure they would die a slow, agonizing death over hours or even days. Their screams provided the soundtrack for the ensuing horror. The younger, more robust boyars and their families were stripped of their noble clothes and forced to march 50 miles north to the ruins of Ponari Castle. There, they faced a stark ultimatum: rebuild the fortress with nothing but their bare hands or perish. For months, they toiled, carrying stones up mountainsides until their hands bled and their fine garments rotted away, collapsing from exertion. Most perished during construction. The survivors were irrevocably changed. Vlad had effectively eradicated the old nobility, replacing them with a new class completely beholden to him, living in perpetual terror at his whim. This was more than mere vengeance. It represented a systematic dismantling of the power structure that had rendered Wallachia weak. Importantly, it revealed a crucial aspect of Vlad's psyche. He sought not merely obedience, but to obliterate his adversaries, so utterly that submission became the only conceivable response, yet this remained a matter of domestic power. The boyars were Wallachian. What Vlad did next sent shockwaves throughout the empires. In 1459, Sultan Mehmed II, the same Mehmed who had been Vlad's childhood companion, dispatched envoys to Wallachia, demanding the annual tribute Vlad's father had promised. The demand was paired with an added insult. Vlad was to present himself in Constantinople to reaffirm his oath of vassalage. The envoys arrived, expecting the usual political performance, perhaps negotiation or a counteroffer. What they faced instead was a taste of hell. Upon entering Vlad's court and refusing to remove their turbans, a customary religious requirement in Ottoman tradition, Vlad asked for an explanation of their custom. When they complied, likely relieved he seemed interested rather than affronted, Vlad nodded thoughtfully. He commanded his guards to nail the turbans directly to their skulls. They exported a grim message screaming, grotesquely disfigured witnesses returning to the Sultan. When Mehmed received these envoys, men he had dispatched in good faith, transformed into nothing more than permanently marked, half-mad wrecks, he comprehended instantly that this was no longer the childhood acquaintance he had known. This was something new, evolution of Ottoman lessons in terror into something even they could not conceive. War was now inevitable. Yet, before the inevitable conflict erupted, Vlad had more messages to convey. Here's a critical point that many overlook regarding impalement. It transcended mere execution, it was engineering. The standard depiction of a stake driven through the torso would result in almost instant death, rendering the entire purpose moot. The stake, rounded at the tip and thoroughly oiled, would be inserted through the rectum. The victim would then be methodically raised upright, their own body weight facilitating the ascent. Over hours, sometimes even days, the stake would journey through the torso, calculated to bypass the heart, lungs, and major blood vessels. In documented cases, the stake might eventually emerge from the shoulder or chest, yet the victim could remain alive for up to 3 dreadful days. Why pursue this method? Vlad understood a vital truth confirmed by modern psychological warfare experts. Witnessing prolonged suffering inflicts exponentially greater trauma than witnessing a quick demise. A beheading on the battlefield is horrifying but fleeting. Impalement serves as a macabre performance lasting days, filled with cries that can echo across vast valleys. However, the physical act alone was but one component. The true genius, if we can use such a distorted term, lay in the staging. Vlad impaled his victims in public squares along critical roads, and outside city gates, anywhere he could ensure maximum visibility. He recognized that word of mouth and rumor could amplify the psychological repercussions far beyond the actual number of victims. One impalement observed by 100 witnesses would create 100 tellers, each ready to spread tales to hundreds more. Vlad also continually refined the symbolism. The stakes varied in height according to rank. Peasants were lower, while nobles were elevated, with the highest stakes reserved for enemy commanders. This barbaric display established a grotesque visual hierarchy reinforcing his message. Everyone occupies a place within his world, and each will suffer punishments befitting their station. In various accounts, he arranged impaled corpses in geometric shaped circles, stars, and concentric rings. This wasn't mere random cruelty. Rather, it served as a demonstration of control. It signified, I possess so much authority that I can turn human suffering into art. A German pamphlet from 1462 describes Vlad purportedly dining amid the impaled, a story possibly exaggerated. Yet the psychological underlying effects are indisputable. The legend claims he set a banquet table in direct proximity to the stakes, consuming meals surrounded by dying men, seemingly relishing the experience. Whether this precise event unfolded as described is debatable. However, the unmistakable psychological message remains clear. I operate beyond your comprehension of human nature, and your horror does not faze me. The Saxons, who had a historically complicated relationship with Vlad, widely circulated these pamphlets, marking some of the earliest mass-produced horror stories in European history. Complete with crude yet effective woodcut illustrations, these images spread across Europe, solidifying Vlad's notorious reputation. Yet a crucial question remains: was any of this working? Was terror genuinely an effective military tactic, or was Vlad simply a sadist wielding power? The answer emerged in the summer of 1462, revealing that Vlad's methods were not simply effective, they were devastatingly so. Sultan Mehmed II, having reached his limit, mobilized an army between 60,000 and 90,000 men, though the exact figure is lost. Even the lowest estimates far surpassed Wallachhia's military-aged male population. This wasn't merely an invasion, it was an extermination. Vlad could muster merely 20,000 to 30,000 men total, many of whom were poorly trained peasant conscripts. A standard battle would lead to a massacre. Thus, Vlad executed his childhood plans by denying a conventional battle. When the Ottoman forces entered Wallachia, they discovered a wasteland, empty villages, tainted wells, and scorched earth. Every potential source of sustenance had been meticulously eradicated. Vlad had commanded his people to abandon their homes, retreat into the forests, and take their livestock with them. The Ottoman supply lines stretched unbearably far, and soon the night raids commenced. These weren't ordinary skirmishes. Vlad trained specialized units in guerrilla tactics. Small bands, anywhere from 50 to 100 men, would strike at Ottoman camps under cover of darkness, killing sentries, igniting fires, and vanishing before a coordinated response materialized. They focused on supply wagons, pack animals, and ammunition caches. The goal wasn't annihilation, but to instill paranoia, fatigue, and demoralization. But the piece de resistance came on the night of June 17, 1462. Vlad had learned from captured Ottoman soldiers that Sultan Mehmed himself was encamped near Targodikt, guarded by his elite janissaries. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Vlad personally led a force of approximately 10,000 men in what would be remembered as the night attack. Under the veil of darkness, they infiltrated the expansive Ottoman camp with one goal in mind: to assassinate the Sultan. Contemporary writings describe utter chaos. The Wallachians, adorned in captured Ottoman uniforms and educated enough in Turkish to sow confusion, set tents ablaze, stampeded horses, and executed eerily orchestrated assaults.